Diego, it's good to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, obviously, in the course of this podcast, we want to learn everything and anything we can about you on the personal side and on the business side. Ultimately, we want to know exactly how you got this business started and what dynamics within your family, within your surroundings, fostered this type of entrepreneurship. So, with that, why don't we start off with your background as a child, exactly how you started, how your family dynamics were.
Sure. I was born in Washington, D.C., 40 years ago. And my mother and I moved to Ecuador. My mother is from Ecuador. My dad was from Italy. And we have a very big family in Ecuador. My father passed away
Mm.
when I was 2 years old, and my mother decided that obviously she wanted to be with family and she wanted me to grow up with surrounded by family. So we moved to Ecuador. I had a wonderful childhood. She has 11 siblings, so I cannot count how many cousins I have. But then I came back here after I finished high school. The goal was always to study university here. That's what she did, and she always told me, America is the greatest country on earth. Just by studying here and having a degree here in the U.S., it will open you doors from anywhere in the world. So that's what I did. I came here. I I obviously I started the university. I went to Florida Atlantic University. I
Okay.
studied finance. I graduated with a major in finance and a minor in economics. And then I started working in the financial industry in a bank. I always kind of knew that I wanted to be in business for myself. Uh, but I had always this personality where I think I could have been happy and successful doing anything or working for somebody. I was trying to find the good things in life, and eventually the opportunity opened, obviously, to start my own business, and I haven't looked back ever since.
So I like to talk about the whole transition from the corporate world to entrepreneurship. It's
Hmm.
something that that's the same bridge that I crossed when at one point in my life, right? It's a very, very difficult bridge to cross because you're coming from a very comfortable environment where you get a guaranteed paycheck,
Yeah,
right? And then you get guaranteed benefits, and then you get a job that you can go and buy a house with, right? You can go get a mortgage with because you have the W 2 to show how much you're making,
yeah,
what you made last year, what you making this year, and so forth and so on. And then to cross that bridge and erase all of that and say, okay, now I'm going to go and be an entrepreneur, start from scratch, unknown amount of money you're going to make. Maybe you lose money. Maybe you won't. There isn't a single bank that's going to lend you money to buy a house or buy something of anything of significance with no income, no W 2. And that is a very, very, very difficult transaction or transition, should I say. I did it, and I know how difficult it is, and I admire people that are willing to take that chance and take that risk and make that transition. What inspired you to do it? What inspired you to say, I'm taking this route, I'm crossing this bridge? Let me go back to the family. You mentioned your father passed away, and that's very sad, and I'm sorry to hear that. Was he a businessman? Was a sibling? Anyone within your family, cousins? You say you have a lot of cousins. Were any of them an inspiration for you to get into an entrepreneurship, or was it something that just grew in you when you came back to the United States?
yeah. No, my father and my mother, they used to work for a bank, for the Inter-American Development Bank in Washington. Inside my family, we really don't have entrepreneurs, and but they're all very hard workers. And I think maybe at some point I saw, how hard everybody works and how far they have getting into, their life with, their work. And for some reason, I always wanted to have a little bit more, or to have a little bit more of the control. Like for instance, in Ecuador, I mean, you can hear in many countries, but in Ecuador we have political issues. There
Of
is
course.
obviously a lot of corruption.
Mm-hmm.
companies that get, they were private and now they were public and so forth. And I did see in many members of my family the fact that they had a stable job at some point, and all of a sudden, perhaps the government will take over, and their benefits will be raised, their pay will be reduced. And it's sort of like, okay, if you think that you have a stable job and a stable future, somebody can come and just erase all of that. So I always wanted to have something more stable, something that I can control. Um, and but for me, it really started when while working at the bank. I had a great opportunity to work as a private banker for one of the largest institutions here in the country. And I think it was a blessing to be there every day with many clients that were very successful, very interesting people from everywhere in the world. Right, my job was to foster the relationship between them and the bank, and so I became friends with people. I became to know them, and they all had their own story. I will always be intrigued of how you got started, what difficulties you encounter, and how you overcame those difficulties, and and it made me figure, okay, anybody could do it. If they did it in their own country or here or wherever, I could also do it here. I mean, what's preventing me from having that or more? So I always thought of different things, right? I always thought of different businesses that perhaps I can get into, and then the common factor was when here at the bank we were trying to have them invest money in the bank, right? And they will give us a portion of their capital, but then the big majority of it will be invested in real estate. And I figured, okay, I mean, maybe I'm in the wrong side here. But when I asked them, like what properties are you buying? They will say, oh, we're buying 4 properties here in the Porch Tower or 3 here in Marina Palms. Very luxurious properties. And I said, okay, but is that for your personal use, or are you gonna rent them out? Because they're usually not rental properties. They said, like, no, no, we just have to park the money there.
Huh.
And it's like, okay, that's a very, very expensive parking lot. But I said, like, why are you not buying properties that perhaps can give you some positive cash flow, right? Some recurring income. So like, well, we'll love to, but my realtor doesn't want to manage properties, or she doesn't know how to manage properties, or we definitely don't want to manage properties ourselves. And we have tried property management companies, but there's always some issues, some conflict. I always remember one thing that one of those people told me. He said, "It's always a very bitter taste in my mouth every single month when I receive the statement from my property manager, and it's always short. He's not sending me the broken pipe or the broken faucet to my country. Not sure I expect him to do that, but there's very lack of transparency, and I have this feeling, and I hate the feeling of being taken advantage of. And even if he sends me a photo of the faucet, how do I know that it's my property? How do I know that it's really the faucet from one of the properties that I own? So coincidentally, at the same time, my wife and I, we started thinking of buying our first investment property. And we both work full time there at the bank. We thought that it would be best to have someone manage it so that it's always on top of the property. And I interviewed probably no less than 15 other companies, from large corporations to middle size to mom and pop businesses. And it was amazing how all of them had some sort of conflict of interest. Like, I can understand why you're doing it, like why it benefits you, but it doesn't benefit me as an investor. The repairs and maintenance, how they can, some of them, they have like service calls, so every time that a tenant will complain, they will make money. Some of them, every time that they have to repair something, they could charge markups or a percentage of the invoice, so they have an incentive of a much bigger issue, right? The bigger the invoice, the more money that they can potentially make. Some, they have their own in-house maintenance people that they have to keep busy, and they have salaries to pay, so obviously they have an incentive of finding things in the properties. And some, they force you to use a specific vendors, and that's a very common, still in the industry, a very
And they're
common
making
practice.
money from those vendors?
sometimes it's their own company,
Ah,
sometimes it's an affiliate, sometimes it's the friends and family, and maybe they're receiving kickbacks. So I turned to my wife and I said, there is a problem here. There people would like rental properties, right? And there is that need for a more transparent, you know, personal attention, professional property management company. And we did our research. You know, she left the company, the bank first, and she got obviously her real estate licenses, and she got the certifications that we needed. I followed a couple of months later, and like you said, it's not easy, but it was for us. It was clear that if we don't do it, we'll regret it at some point. And we were young then. Well, I mean, we're still young, I think. But I, it was one of those things that for me at least, it was clear. You know the decision that I needed to make, and I knew that if I didn't take the plunge and jump into opening my own business, I will regret it someday. And but you're right; it was very comfortable to be receiving, obviously, the paychecks every month, just showing up and doing what is expected of me, and then I can call in sick and still get paid. And
exactly. Vacation days.
sure, sure, sure. And there was a very comfortable banking position. Um, and I was continuing to increase in the ranks in the bank as well. Everybody called me crazy, but I don't know. I guess I felt it inside, and I'm glad that my wife did too, because obviously it takes two, especially in a marriage, to make sure that there is harmony. And we had the same vision. We didn't let anybody else, steer us another way, and it's been a blessing.
That's an incredible story, and it's very common among entrepreneurs, Diego. So I'm from the camp that says entrepreneurs are born; they're not made, right? So for me, I remember when I got my first job as an engineer, right? I had just graduated from college, and I'm lucky to be one of those in a pretty bad economy back in the 90s to be able to find a job as an engineer. It wasn't a week into that job that I was already thinking about things that I could invent and bring to market. When at the time of course, I was in my early 20s, it never occurred to me that that's entrepreneurship. You have a job. I have a job. I'm making money. All of a sudden, you go from being poor in college to actually getting a paycheck, right? You should be, jumping up and down with joy. And here I am, a week into that, working late at night at home, inventing things. As an electrical engineer, I'm inventing things, thinking of ways I can bring that to the market and sell it. Years later is really when I realized, that power of entrepreneurship was always in me. That's exactly what engulfed this, fire that I have inside. And I find that that's very, very, very typical with entrepreneurs, business owners, because this path of leaving that comfort zone and starting something on your own is incredibly complex, right? So, so tell me about the property management side. You told me exactly what led you into property management. You saw an opportunity. You saw a fact that people were doing this unethically, right? So one of the things that I always say is that you don't need to come up with a brand new mousetrap. Just take whatever it's out there and make it better, right? Because there are a lot of people, a lot of business owners that are doing a business, but they're doing terrible at it, right? Unethical ways. They have a very short term vision. They're looking at next week. They're looking at 2 weeks. How do I screw this guy and make an extra buck out of him, as opposed to saying, how do I take care of this guy that so that he can recommend 5 other people to me, right? That's unfortunately the business mindset that's out there. So you came in from the other side and you said, look, I'm going to take what's already out there and make it better, make it more ethical, make it more right. So who gave you the training? How did you learn to get into the property management? Of course, you saw what's out there. How did you get started? What was your first move?
So I did have some background of how to manage an investment, right? And my wife obviously got training on the real estate side. And then it was just a matter of, I mean, it'll sound maybe funny, but it's common sense sometimes, right? It's making sure that we have the right processes in place. And at the beginning, I mean, it was definitely trial and error most of the time, uh, making sure that something fits, making sure that something works, with always the same goal in mind, right? The interest of the investor and the client has to be the same as the one of the company, right? We cannot have conflict of interests. Um, but you hit the nail right on the head when you said, obviously most companies, they think of, how do I screw this guy now,
Mhm.
instead of thinking, how can he recommend me 5 other clients? I always saw it as, how can this client stay with me forever, especially in the property management, because when people buy real estate, they buy it for the long term. Especially rental properties, right? You don't get into a property, get a tenant to then sell it, because it's actually harder. You want to sell it perhaps when it's vacant, when the person that can falls in love to live there is going to buy the property. When you have a tenant, it's harder to sell sometimes, unless an investor comes and buys it, but he's buying an investment that you don't want.
Exactly.
So most people, they have a property, they have a tenant, and they're gonna keep it for years and sometimes generations. So I don't have the need to go and look every single month for a new client, because that client is gonna stay with me for years and then also refer me their friends and family. So many companies, they have the wrong practices in place. They have their interests before the ones of their clients, and they lose those clients to companies like me. And then they have to spend tons of money trying to get new clients and new doors when I don't have to. Like, we don't have a cancellation fee on our business ever. Like, we want to earn their business every day. We know that we're good at what we do.
That's part of being ethical, by the way.
No,
That
exactly.
whole cancellation fee is a gimmick.
Exactly. And but you'll be surprised how many they hold their clients hostage. They cannot leave them unless they pay this fee. They cannot leave them until this other future date. Even if they leave them, sometimes like they're still forced to sell their properties with their services. Crazy, ridiculous stuff. We want to earn their business every day. They don't feel trapped. We are open to always good communication. My calendar, my availability is there for every client. We put it right there on our website. Anybody can book a meeting directly with me. That's the type of level of personal service that we provide. We use technology a lot, and now this day and age, everything is technology, and with the AI movement, which is great. And we use technology obviously to speed up the process, to catch mistakes, to not let things fall through the cracks, but always still a very personal attention to everybody. So, you know,
So, True Nest is the name of your company. You, I feel, came up with an amazing name.
thank you.
Branding is very important, right? Branding is very important in the growth of the franchise. It's in the growth of the business. I said franchise because we're going to get into that. Cut that, please. And I'm going to go and say this again, okay? All right. All right. So, True Nest. True Nest is a great name, in my opinion. It's a um, many times entrepreneurs, as they brand their business, they pay little attention to the branding. What I mean by that is they want the business name to be either very descriptive or very unique, or and then in the course of making it descriptive, the name becomes incredibly long, right? Diego Benetti's home management or property management services of Miami. That's a typical thing that people come up with, and not realizing that that's a terrible name. Why? Because it's not scalable,
Right,
right? You've said a few things in there that takes the scalability of the business away from it. Number one, you mentioned the name.
right.
Number two, you mentioned the city. So those type of things, and then on number three, you have a long name, and nobody's gonna remember all that name. And then what is the domain gonna look like on the website when
Yeah.
you typing it up? And the longer the domain, the more chances of a spelling issue or a particular letter that's out, and all of a sudden you end up on another website. So you did a great job of coming up with a short, sweet name that really is, to me, very descriptive of the goal of your business, right? Um, did you trademark it? Did you when you started this, when you started the True Nest, did you trademark it immediately, or was it trademarked later on?
It was trademarked later on. We really thought about obviously the name, and we chose TrueNest because for us, a nest, it's like harmony, right? Uh, we want to make life easier for landlords, but we also want to make life easier for tenants. And I think that, harmony benefits everyone, right? A happy tenant is going to maintain the property, is going to stay there in the nest,
That's
right?
right.
And not fly off the nest to somewhere else. And that translates to steady cash flow for the investor.
That's right.
So everything we do as well is obviously with the better interest of the investor, which is making sure that the tenants are well taken care of, that the properties are well managed and well maintained. Um, and we have turned many business away. I mean, we could have five times the door count that we have now, because unbelievably there are many landlords that don't don't have the same values or the same investment mentality that we have, and they cannot care less about, let's say, their property or their tenants. So we don't want to deal with those type of clients. So we are selective as far as who we work with, the type of properties that we manage as well, because one, it helps us obviously avoid timely spending time with difficult properties, difficult tenants, difficult clients. But trueness, that's how it became about, as far as harmony for everybody.
I love it. I love it. It's a true nest.
Yeah.
What are the services you guys provide?
We're a full service property management company. So we help with the rent collection, maintenance and repairs coordination, um, property inspections, the financial reporting, obviously for the asset. We help with property marketing, tenant screening. Um, we do everything that the property needs so that it runs as a successful rental business, and so that the owner doesn't have to do it.
And I assume you're taking a percentage of
Right.
rent, whatever is coming in, right?
Correct. So our pricing structure is very simple. We only profit when the tenants pay the rent and we're able to collect the rent. We take a percentage and the rest is deposited to the owner.
So the money comes to you and then it goes to the owner.
Correct. We make it super easy for tenants to pay their rent. We have an online portal where they can submit their rent payments online. They can also submit maintenance and repairs requests online. It's very simple. Um, Once the funds clear, we send it to the owner. We provide them with PDF statements every month. We handle everything.
I love your business, by the way. And let me tell you why I love your business. I love your business, and I'm not the only one that loves your business. Um, Property, anything that has to do with the residential and commercial type of business, whether it's maintenance, whether it's repairs, whether it's upkeep. I'm talking about painting. I'm talking about has to do with gutters and garage doors, property man, anything that has to do with a residential, B commercial, residential first, commercial second, is now has now in the last 2 years become the hottest industry in business. And we're going to talk about franchising. In franchising, it is now considered the hottest sector. People are buying these type of franchises. They're opening these kind of businesses for a variety of reasons. Number one, the entrance to open one of these things, in other words, the entrance price, right? The startup cost is very little. The ongoing cost to operate one of these businesses is very little, because most of the times people run this from home. I know you like to have an office, but they don't necessarily have
Yeah,
to have an
they don't
office.
have
They
to.
can run this from home. And majority of times people run this on their own, a husband and wife team or whatever the case is. Maybe a couple of kids are helping you. Employee issues, which happens to be the largest issue in running a business, is a non-existent thing with these kind of businesses. So tell me about your year one. I want to get into the world of franchising in a second. Tell me about your year one. What did it look like when you first started this business? You knew nothing about this business. You really threw yourself out there, and you probably made a lot of mistakes in the
Sure.
on the way. How were the sales and revenue that was generated? How did it come about on year one?
We have well, when we started, we obviously only managed just a couple of properties from friends and family. The one that we bought, obviously, the word spread out obviously to people that I used to know from the bank that had those properties, that with the issues that they were having before. So we started obviously advertising our company. Um, we, like you said, we made mistakes, but the mistakes obviously were calculated mistakes, right? We were able to see, you know, first of all, get educated, from, what are the best practices. We attended a lot of conferences. We networked a lot with other property managers just to see what pains they have and see how we can avoid those in the future. And many of the things that we realize is, like you said, employee issues. Many of them, they had um, 800 properties under management, and they were breaking even, and it always, like, I couldn't understand how you have so many properties and you're not making money. And it's like, well, everything goes out to salary. And so it was automatic to me that from day one, we have to establish a system and we have to establish processes for everything so that it can be repeated. We don't make as much mistakes. We can actually, at some point, delegate this to someone, and and they can become experts. So uh, one thing that we decided early on with my wife is that what type of properties we really want to manage, right? Because the big majority of property management companies, they want to do it all. They want to manage HOAs, they want to manage commercial properties, they want to manage, entire buildings, and also residential. We thought we really need to be the best at managing one type of property, and do just that. And that's what we did. We focused just on residential property management. We don't manage HOH, we don't manage commercial, we don't manage um, other types of properties. And that really helps us lower or keep our operational costs really, really low. Um, there is We have a great team, right? That instead of many other companies, they assign a property manager to certain group of properties. We don't like to do that, because if that person is not so good at certain things or is sick, who's managing those properties? We have a departmental approach. So we have, as we grew year after year, we started using employees, right? That they will perhaps, they just focus just on maintenance. This ones, they just focus just on tenant screening. This one, they just do bookkeeping, and they become experts. They know everything very well, and I would supervise everything. So the income wise, uh, it's a steady growth. Um, Once we get a client, the client wouldn't leave, and we have a steady income coming in every month. And as more properties will come into the portfolio, our income will continue to grow, but our expenses wouldn't. Like, it's very little what the expenses will grow compared to what the income is every month. So
It's a recurring income.
exactly, exactly, and it's super steady. It's the same income every month, and just building it up for new clients that are coming in. So um, does that answer
That
your
answers
question?
my question. Yeah. So, what do you need? Is there any requirements, any particular licenses that you suggest someone should have when they're starting a property management business?
Um, so every state is different, right? Here in Florida, you don't need to have a license if you're gonna manage properties that are less 10 units or less, right? Like single family homes and so forth. Um, but it's very recommended that they also have a real estate license, because uh, here in Florida, you can operate a property management without a real estate license, but you will have to hire a real estate agent to handle the activities that require a license based on the laws here in Florida, like renting a property, collecting the rent, and so forth, right? Drafting lease agreements. So it is definitely recommended. I would say my wife is the real estate agent on the company, and because it's very simple. You're already doing everything that you're supposed to be doing for the property. Obviously, renting a property they will get a commission as well for that rent. If that property is going to be sold at some point, that real estate agent can also be the one selling the property, or when new clients want to acquire new properties, that real estate agent can help them acquire properties. And all those transactions have a commission, which you can obviously increase to the bottom line at the end of the year. So different states may have different requirements. Some of them, they may have like a specific property management license, but here in Florida, that's how it is.
So, Diego, I know that you franchise your business with Franchise Creator. Um, a franchise creator reached out to you, they scouted you, they found you, and you signed up. Tell me about that experience from the beginning to when you were a franchise. How was it?
Yeah, it's actually a kind of funny story because I was driving with my wife one day, uh, and um, and I told her, "Honey, you know what's next for us?" She's like, "What? We're gonna franchise." And it's like, "Really? Yes, that's what we're going after." And I had it, in my mind, and I think not like a week later, I got a call from, or I think it was a text or an email from one of your guys, and I'm like, really? It's like maybe they heard me. You know how sometimes you're
Oh
saying
yes,
something and
yes,
then the phone
yes.
appears.
I
It's
would
like
love to have those
maybe
little microphones in people's phones,
we're
but no.
saying, tell me the truth. But but that's how it happened. And then it's like, yeah, sure, I'll take the meeting. And then I spoke with him, Joseph. He was amazing. From the very beginning, he was very transparent. Like I asked him a lot of questions. I did my research. I told him, listen, what happened here, or what do you guys do here, or and he answered them, which they felt like very genuine responses. I, for me, I appreciate obviously a company that is well established. That they it seems like you guys always have like someone for everything, and everybody seems to know what they're doing, and so I signed, and since then, I mean, it's been great, honestly. And I'm just saying that because you're in front of me, but it is. Everybody's super nice. Everybody's very knowledgeable. The um, like generally, happy and trying to help you and helping me succeed, of course. So I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate that. I appreciate that feedback very, very much. Look, I also know that we selected your brand into what's called the division of franchise creator, which is G-Force Growth. Now, I just want you to understand how much we care about your brand and how much we believe in the growth of this franchise today. That out of 800 businesses that Franchise Creator has franchised, we've only selected three companies so far, three companies to join GeForce Growth, where we put all of our resources into it to grow the company, right? So we put our money, our reputation, our knowledge, and everything else to take that brand to the next level, right? To find the right franchisees and take them to the next level. So you happen to be one of them. That's how much we believe in it. And for me, it always starts with the owner. It always starts with the founder. The founder has to be the right partner, the right person, and then the business has to be good. And then of course there's so many different factors, and yours has all the little check marks, right? Every single check mark that there is to be had. um, so we're excited to have for this partnership. We believe that this franchise is going to grow incredibly fast, and it already is. So tell me a little bit about what a day in the life of a franchisee looks like. If someone buys your franchise, what is a day in the life for them? When they wake up in the morning as a franchise owner, what do they do all the way till they're done with the day?
One of the beauties of property management is that it can be extremely flexible. Um, the person that obviously the franchisee, the owner, uh, they can, because everything is repeatable. Like we have to do a lease renewal. These are the steps. When we have a maintenance issue, these are the steps. So it's something that it can be assigned to someone really quickly. So I always, say like if there's something that perhaps you don't like, right, as an owner, it's something that it can be passed to somebody else and they can do it well. The training is very little, but on a day-to-day basis, is obviously responding to emails from clients, making sure that the tenants and the maintenance repairs are being taken care of, that the bookkeeper people are doing obviously what they're supposed to do, that the rents are getting paid. It's everything is planned. Obviously, there's still, in one of the biggest challenges of property management is dealing with obviously issues that are like emergencies or maintenance calls or perhaps tenant disputes. But if there is a clear protocol to follow. When these things happen, everything is simple. Everything is manageable. Um, but we use a lot of technology, obviously, to help, and we set expectations very clearly from the very beginning, from clients to tenants, and it really helps our day-to-day operations doing that.
Can people do this on a part-time basis, or when somebody buys a franchise, do they have to commit to it on a full-time basis?
For property management, I will really say full time,
Okay.
to be honest, because especially for me, like I wouldn't want to be an investor where my manager is part time, right? Like that's why, like when I left the bank, part of it was, I knew that I couldn't be working at the bank and also manage properties, right? It wouldn't be fair to the investors. It wouldn't be fair to the tenants. At the very beginning, it's something that I would say somebody will need to be full time so that they can also grow, right? Remember that I mentioned that we take a very personal approach to knowing the client, knowing the tenant. That requires some time at the beginning, right? Um, as the business grows, as the company grows with more portfolios, you can hire more people and you can delegate those things. And then you can, as an owner, perhaps step back a little, just take a look at the big picture, see where you want to take the business next, or just do anything that you like, right? But at the very beginning, I would say it does require the attention of the entrepreneur. Um, and yeah, I wouldn't recommend perhaps like a part time at the beginning. Yeah.
Is the question that's always asked about businesses like yours, right? I'm talking about not of course, a restaurant business where there is a particular burger with a particular ingredient, particular recipe that's being made that makes it unique to that location. This is a car wash business. This is a gutter cleaning business. This is a property management business. So it doesn't necessarily have that particular recipe. The question is always asked is, why would I buy a franchise rather than start a business on my own? And the way for me, this business is very simple. Your business is a winner in all aspects in the world of franchising for the following reasons. Number one, it has an incredibly low startup cost, right? It's a home based business. So I don't really have to wait 9 months or 8 months or 7 months to build my location, the brick and mortar location. I pay a small fee up front, which is a franchise fee. And then with that, you're gonna give that person the know-how of what to do next. They'll go and run this from home. Yes, if you grow big enough, at one point, maybe you get an office location. Otherwise, you continue running this from
Mm-hmm.
home. So your ongoing costs are incredibly little. You don't have to sign a lease for a brick and mortar, which you have to personally guarantee it majority of the times.
Yeah.
So now you're putting all these liabilities out there where in your business, none of those liabilities exist. You pay a small franchise fee, you start your business, within 30 days, you're in business, making money, making that money that you paid right back to you. Your ROI is incredibly little. In other words, very soon you get your money back for whatever investment you made because of this money that's coming in quickly from residential locations near you.
Sure.
And then, of course, the money becomes residual. So now you have this house that signed up with you. You get money from this one. You add another one. Now it's doubled, tripled,
Mm-hmm.
quadrupled. So the business continues to grow, but your workload, just like you said, is it remains the same. The question is, why should someone buy this franchise or start it on their own? Look, what I always tell people, and I'm answering my own question because I want the audience to really understand that when you start a business on your own, like you did, like I have done multiple times, you're running a huge risk. There's a
Sure.
lot of unknown. There's a lot of roads that you take that have a lot of bumps in it
And
a-
costly mistakes.
and costly mistakes. Mistakes are
Sure.
costly.
Sure.
Time is money,
Sure.
right? So you spend a lot of money and a lot of time and you fail. As a matter of fact, 50% of businesses that start on their own, this is not according to me, this is according to the Chamber of Commerce. 50% of businesses that start today won't be in business a year from now. And um, 75% of them won't be in business 5 years out. In other words, if you're starting something on your own from scratch, you have a 25% chance to be in business 5 years from now. Now I'm going to turn that back into franchises. Franchises, 92% of them are still in business 5 years out. So it's a difference between 75% failure on this side, 8% failure on that side. The choice is incredibly clear. So, yes, you pay a fee, you pay what's called a franchise fee, but it doesn't matter because you make that up in all the time that you spend and all the mistakes that you made, which was also costly. So this is the reason why people rather buy a franchise as opposed to just start something on their own. Can they do this on their own? Hey, Diego did. Yes, maybe you can too, but the chance of you failing is out there. The
Sure.
stats are telling you. What do you think about that?
They are buying into a proven business model, right? It's already known that it's a successful business. It's already known that it's a successful model. All they have to do is receive the support, right, and continue to the growth in their area. They could also make a mistake, obviously, getting into business by themselves from scratch. They can make a mistake and end up with an unsuccessful business, and then obviously that will definitely cost them more money than the franchise fee, perhaps. And like you say, time is money, and we spent a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of tears uh, perfecting what we have now. And now obviously we're getting the rewards, but it could definitely would have been a different scenario. Perhaps it would have made their own turn somewhere.
100%. And you know something, Diego. Obviously, I'm looking at you. I'm having this conversation. I know you already, but for those people that don't know you, hopefully they're seeing what I'm seeing, and that is you're a very nice guy. You're
Yeah.
what you see, what you get type of guy, right? And that is not true for all franchise systems that are out there, right? I can't say that about every single franchisor that is going to be doing exactly that has those same very behaviors, right? Your goal is to make, and I know you've said this to me before. Your goal is to make your franchisee successful.
Yeah.
Franchise systems work from the bottom up, as opposed to regular businesses work from the success comes from the top to bottom. What do I mean by that? If you own a restaurant or you own an ice cream shop or you own a gym, the more money you make, the more employees you can hire and the more you can pay your employees. So your employees become successful if your business is making more money, right? So it's top to bottom. In franchising, it works the other way around, right? So if your franchisees are successful, there is more money and success that can grow the franchise system into more franchisees, and all of these successes translate into the franchisor being successful. If your franchisees are failing, your entire system of franchise
Yeah.
collapses, right? So it's a bottom up type of a success system. And I know you're a true believer of that because you've said that before. And I want, again, the audience to understand that when they buy into a franchise like yours, they're partnering with a guy like you that really is not going to let them fail.
Right.
You made your business on your own. You did the failing so that they don't have to do the failings.
Right. I mean, there's no point of doing any of this if they are not going to be successful, right? So I have to do everything in my power to make sure that they are successful, that they continue to grow, that they can also contribute to the overall business itself, right? Um, some of the best, products have come from franchisees that obviously everybody takes reward, like the Big Mac, things
Exactly.
like that.
Exactly.
So I think if they win, everybody wins, and obviously them failing, it's something that everybody will lose, including myself. So obviously there's no point of any of this. Obviously, if I wasn't prepared to give my full support to franchisees and to be all in the franchise journey. So
And what's another thing that's very um, good for people to know, franchisees to know, is the fact that you're in this business. In
yeah,
other words, when somebody calls you and says, "Hey, Diego, I have this problem,"
sure,
you're going to know exactly what the answer is because you dealt with that problem yesterday or last week or last month
yeah,
because you're in this business. It's not like you're on the golf course every day or because you bought this business from someone and you made an investment in it and you really don't care what the business is. You're actually practicing this business every single day. And for that reason, people can relate to you and you can relate to them on a day-to-day basis. So let me ask you this. When somebody buys this franchise, do they get a specific territory, an exclusive territory where you don't put another franchisee there? Some franchises like Subway, they don't really give you an exclusive territory. This is the reason why you see a Subway across the street from another Subway. None of them make money,
Yeah.
and you see the trouble that they're in. But do you guys provide an exclusive territory?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, I have talked to franchisees, let's say from our competitors, let's say, and one of the number one complaints that they have is the size of the territory. So, like I knew from the beginning when I started to do the franchise that my franchisees cannot have the same problem, right? So we are prepared of giving obviously a more generous area, an area that obviously will perhaps guarantee that they will have enough business to be successful in a much quicker way
And
too.
they can grow.
Exactly.
In other words, they can buy the adjacent
Yeah.
territory and then grow that and continue to build on it. They can build their own little empire if they wished.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So what's your goal? Your goal is to go nationwide, statewide. What are you thinking?
Sure. I mean, I know that we have a good business. We provide a great service. It would be selfish not to want to share it everywhere that we can, right? So, sure, if we can take True Nest nationwide, even worldwide, who knows? Absolutely. I mean, the sky's the limit. I wouldn't want to put a cap on everybody's success.
Well, look, I'm looking forward to seeing this business, and I'm willing to bet you that your growth would be exponential, right? So, one of the things that most franchise systems begin their growth in a linear format, right? And then they hit that point that they go exponential, right? So they start growing at 3 4 franchises per year, and then the next year they're going at 8 9, and then usually every year they double that, right? And then they hit a point where they're growing by 100 franchises, and that's when the growth is exponential. I'm willing to bet that the growth of True Nest as a franchise, because of the qualifications that I mentioned, the fact that it's home based, the fact that it's very little to start, the fact that anyone without any prior skill or knowledge can run this business, and the fact that you got a guy like yourself behind the brand that's going to stay there and is going to support these franchisees, I'm willing to bet that you're going to see that exponential growth from day one, from the very beginning, and you're already seeing that. By the way, it's already happening. But that point of growth is going to be a lot quicker than other franchises, and for that reason, you're going to see a lot of territories disappearing. In other words, people are just locking up these territories and buying them, and of course they disappear. So in closing, I just have a quick question for you. And the question is, what advice do you have for entrepreneurs that want to scale their business? People that own a business like yourself. You've already gone through the process of franchising. What advice do you have for them? What do you suggest they should do?
Well, if expanding is their goal, right? I suggest don't wait too long to take the step because um, for me, I always thought like maybe we have to fix this before we can start, and franchise. We need to. We're not ready yet. We have to do this other stuff. And the reality is that the growing, the improving is never going to end, and it never should end. So it's gonna be forever. Obviously, if I stop improving, is I stop thinking, right? So take the step. I think the whole process will actually, in all reality, it made me grow faster. When we have to think of, okay, we have to write everything down, we have to prepare a training, we have to. Sometimes we even caught some little glitches, some little mistakes, okay, hey, we're missing a template here. So if anything, my suggestion will be start sooner than later, and then go from there. Because and don't be afraid, because if they're waiting until they have a perfect business, they will be waiting forever.
And it's funny you say that because one of the things that I always tell business owners is, business owners are perfectionists, right?
Yeah.
They want to have their business absolutely in a perfect tip top shape before they pursue the world of franchising and start growing and start scaling it. And they say things like, well, I still don't have the processes in place. I still want to add this and I want to add that to my business. I
Mm-hmm.
want to add this technology, or I want to bring this employee in, or I want to do all of these before I
Sure.
franchise or before I scale the business in general. The problem with that is you're missing out. There's a race going on out there. There's all these cars on this racetrack, and they're winning every single day, and they're collecting a trophy for it. You potentially have the same race car. You potentially have the same engine, same transmission, same tires, same everything. Yours is in the garage because you're too busy messing around with the engine, trying to perfect that last 5 horsepower that you can get out of that engine before you put it in the racetrack. And yes, someday maybe you'll get there. But by then, you've already lost the race because your competitors are already out there. So, scaling the business, franchising a business for me is if you have something that works, if you have something that people are willing to buy, you're getting good reviews, you're getting your business continues to grow month after month, and your customer base is steady, people like your products, and money's coming in, that's a time to franchise. There's no reason to wait. Take that car out of the garage and join the race. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as you realize that you have something special, something unique, something that is scalable, and somebody else can do the same, that's the time to do it. And by the way, I'm a huge motorsport fanatic, so I really like the race car
I am too,
analogy.
by the way. Yeah. Diego, it was a pleasure having you here
It
today,
was a
man.
pleasure
Looking
here.
forward to seeing this business grow nationwide, and let's get back together again, maybe in a few months,
Sure,
and let's see where we are. All right.
sure, sure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Diego.
Thank you.